This episode coming to you from the metaverse, sponsored by MetaQuest.
At least for one of us, not sponsored.
What's up, everybody? This is episode number. Let's go. We're here to talk about Superman comics that inspired the new Superman movie starring David Corenswet, Rachel Brosnahan, other people.
Marshall, the camera's on your right. You got to face the other direction.
Oh,
turn that
hey
way.
Everybody! This is Comic Book Show, the Tales from the Long Box. We're talking about the comic book that inspired Superman, the comic book.
Silly.
So guys, there's a lot of comic books that are out there to be seen. And if you really want to know about them, we can tell you about them. Michael,
But only once Marshall exits the metaverse can we talk about.
Okay.
Marshall's like an iPad kid, but he's a metaverse kid. I'm sure that's a thing. Wow. Wow, you're like, it's like Ready Player One. Did you see the Iron Giant? Did you see the Gundam?
Yeah, and there was
what's his name from Rogue One?
Simon Pegg was there.
Simon Pegg is there for some reason, doing a very silly voice.
So guys, we're here to talk about the Superman comic books that we think maybe are inspiring the new film, as based on the trailers and based on also what the cast and crew have been saying.
Yes. Yeah. James Gunn has been so vocal on Twitter.
He has. He said a lot of stuff about like what for him has been the inspiration behind like the writing process and the script and stuff like that.
Yeah. Which when the directors be saying stuff, Marshall and Michael will be going,
yeah, and it's cool how transparent they've been about it and how much they've been specifically promoting the comics, which is something Marvel's just like kind of never done. It's really cool the way that they've actually had actual brand synergy in the way that makes sense, rather than just having it go the weird backwards way around of having the Guardians of the Galaxy movie come out, James Gunn, and then take the comic book version of the characters and just basically turn it into the movie version.
Yeah.
This is not that, which is really cool. This is its own distinct thing, and the comic is staying true to itself at the same time, which is really exciting to me.
Yeah.
I really love that. So
okay, so I know where I want us to start.
Talk about it.
Before we started filming, you said something about we're talking about the comics that inspired the new Superman movie.
Yeah.
Especially Kingdom Come. Probably,
yes.
Yeah. Those were your words. It's Kingdom Come. So I want to start with Kingdom Come because I don't know if I disagree. I don't have enough data to disagree.
Yeah. But
I think it's an interesting place for them to start the entire universe. Like, I know they kind of started with Creature Commandos as James Gunn's DC
it's like a
universe.
soft entry, though.
Yes.
Technically, Blue Beetle is a soft entry, as far as we're aware.
Yeah. Black Adam was the hard exit. And then you had Blue Beetle.
Really hard.
The biggest thing I'll miss from the DCEU. But this is essentially kicking off James Gunn's DCU.
Yeah.
In contrast, maybe, the Kingdom Come event was this late 90s DC Comics event that was like a crossover with a ton of the Justice with their whole cast of characters. 96.
Written by Mark Waid, fully painted by Alex Ross, lettered by Todd Klein, and also, of course, colored by Alex Ross.
And we should talk about Alex Ross.
We will.
Throughout.
Yeah.
Because he's just the best to do it. He's the best that's ever done it, I think.
At this specific kind of story, though.
Yeah, you're right.
I think if I was reading every comic and it was painted by Alex Ross, it wouldn't work for me as well. Yeah. But for this was kind of him doing something. He pitched this idea to DC editorial
while he was doing the Marvels.
Yeah. Well, I think it was just after the Marvels, but it was kind of a similar idea because of the Marvels. He was able to say like, look, here's something that I've done that's like superheroes in the real world. Yeah. And what does that look like and how does that affect people and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Hey, DC, here's this thing. And then DC then said, or whoever was editorial, I can't remember, said to Mark Waid, hey, this seems like you would be good at this. So that's how that all kind of came to be.
Totally. Yeah. And it's essentially this story that takes place like a decade after a huge cataclysm that like irradiates the entire state of Kansas and into Nebraska and Iowa.
Not quite.
The deal?
No. So you're half right. So where you started out was saying that this would be a weird place to start their universe, and I think if they were directly adapting this, that's 100% right. But I don't think, from what I've seen, and I can talk about why I think that this is the thing that it's in large part inspired by. Yeah, I think they're taking a lot from this, but obviously not like the bigger broad sweeps of it, because the story of Kingdom Come is that in like the time that it came out, basically like the late 90s is it like takes place in the time that it was released. So in the late 90s, something happened that caused Superman to retreat from the world. Basically, there was a character, a hero, anti-hero kind of, called Magog, who Joker came to Metropolis and killed like 40 some people, and Magog shows up and just kills him. And Superman is Superman, and he takes offense to that and literally like takes Magog to court, and the people choose Magog and not Superman. And it is this like rejection of his traditional ways of like this pure way of not killing and all this different stuff, and he retreats and is gone for like 10 years.
It's very,
and
very like Trial of Jesus, like choosing Barabbas over him, that kind of thing. So
he when he retreats, so do a lot of his other kind of contemporaries, like Wonder Woman, Batman, Green Lantern, whatever. They all kind of, they don't fully go away, but they kind of go away from the public eye.
They're in hiding.
And 10 years later, the world is kind of going to hell, because now the sons and grandsons, daughters, granddaughters of these same heroes and characters have taken on the roles of their forefathers, and they are following in Magog's.
That's crazy.
Right? They're following in Magog's example of being just kind of brutal and uncaring and frivolous. Like, they say that they've gotten rid of all supervillains, but in the process they've also kind of just started infighting, and it's just become very dangerous and over the top and ridiculous. And in the process of all this getting worse and worse, Magog fights some villain in the Kansas area, and in the process Captain Atom gets hurt to the degree that he's Captain Atom. He becomes a nuclear explosion, blows up most of the Midwest, millions of people die. So Superman comes back for that reason, and then it becomes this thing of like, what is his responsibility to lead, and what is, to what degree does he need to take charge, and does he need to let people make their own decisions? And it's a really interesting, really difficult question to answer, and the whole thing is told, like Marvel's, through the perspective of an eye level point of view character.
Yes, because they have like a frame narrative,
a pastor, a minister.
Totally.
Who's basically being led around by the Spectre in the form of like the ghost of Christmas future, more or less. And it is really, really, really good. I read this for the first time when I was like 13, and I didn't get it, I don't think. And now that I've like lived life and understand a lot of the questions that are being asked here about moral authority and tradition versus modernity, and like the questions of authoritarianism and stuff like that, it hit really heavily.
Absolutely.
That's how I feel.
It's one of the better DC comics probably of all time. Definitely
I
of
would
the
put
last
it in the top
30
10.
years. Yeah, easily. It's a great event. You wouldn't have things like Injustice if you didn't have this. You wouldn't have a lot of these like legacy sort of storylines without this one kind of paving a trail for it.
Civil War and Injustice are both kind of like lesser versions of this story in a lot of ways. Civil War especially is very similar to this in a lot of ways, but in very Mark Millar form, it becomes like kind of too overtly political in a way that it feels like it's just telling you what you should feel and do, whereas this is asking a lot of questions, and it comes to a kind of definitive answer, but it's not one that is saying like you should dislike this person or this person is wrong, where this is not that at all. You know,
it lets you decide. Even Superman throughout it is
a lot of questioning.
A lot of questioning, a lot of like, you as the reader are sitting there trying to figure out like, do I agree with, he's getting into points of violence, of impossible decisions to make, and things like that. And you're sitting there going, this isn't what I would have decided, maybe. You know what I mean? It's like if put in this same position, this seems like an authoritarian way of going about this or something like that. And he flip-flops. And at some point it's like, at some parts of this, like maybe minor spoilers, but Wonder Woman kind of steps over a line and Superman goes, oh, that's a little much, and wants to pull back, and then you kind of like go back with it. So it really, which I think that's a good structure of a narrative for readers to, it makes readers ask those questions, because you don't agree with your paragon of virtue the entire time for once. Yeah. And most of this other stuff that we'll talk about today, you agree with Superman the whole time, because Superman is good, is goodness at all times. But in this, he's kind of not, and it makes it really humanizes him through this extremely epic story.
He's very fallible.
Yes, he is extremely,
in a way that, like, I feel like some fans wouldn't be able to handle, where they feel like he has to be this perfect picture of everything, like the way that people got mad about Luke in The Last Jedi. Yeah. Like, we turn this guy into a human and it makes him more interesting. Mm-hmm. We don't keep him as this, like, weird Jedi god. Yeah. Where, like, the reason this story works is because we have those two things, and we go into this with this idea of this deity Superman, and it breaks it down in a way, because like that's part of the meta story, is that is what people think of him as. So how does he navigate that, especially now that, like, you know, it's been like a decade without, like, Lois has been gone for a long time too. Yeah. So now his connection to humanity is gone, and he's got on one shoulder. He's got the angel on either shoulder, and one is Wonder Woman and one is Batman. Yeah. And Wonder Woman is completely disconnected from humanity and fully living in godhood and everything like that. Yeah. And just not have any kind of perspective. Yeah. And on this side is Batman, who is fully living as a person and becoming more and more separate from the heroes and what he sees them doing. Yeah. And Superman is stuck in the middle of this, trying to figure out, because he does kind of live in both worlds. Yeah. Ultimately, he's still a super, so he's ultimately separate for that reason. Which is why having people like Lois and Jimmy has always been really important to that character. Yeah. Because it does pull him down to earth. But not having that grounding anymore, it becomes easy for him to then say, like, I guess they don't want me anymore. Yeah. And I'm going to go live in the Fortress of Solitude on a fake farm for 10 years. Yeah. And when he's there, that's when he disconnects from humanity, to the point of he won't be called Clark anymore. Yes. He won't go by his human, and he will correct people when they call him by his known human name. Yeah. He is Kal-El. He is the alien. Well, on the human side, Bruce is calling him Clark. Yes. Refuses to call him Kal. Yeah. He insists. And Diana initially calls him Clark, and then he corrects her, and then she doesn't really question it for the rest of that. It's like, okay, whatever. She gets used to it fast. Yeah, definitely. Because she is also not from, like, the world of human beings. No. And so it's easy for her to be disconnected in the way that Kal-El knows that he can't be. He just needs a little bit of a reminder of it over time. Because it's the same kind of thing for her, where, like, people like Steve Trevor or what have always grounded her to humanity. But she grew up, like, it's as though, like, Superman grew up on Krypton and then left at 30-something instead of showing up and then becoming Superman at 30-something after growing up. Yeah. It's like a totally, totally different dynamic in a very weird, also similar way. And it's what makes these stories so compelling, I think, is because we know how these characters are supposed to act, especially characters like Superman. Yeah. That, you know, famously, people who aren't very good at analyzing the character or characters in general say, oh, he's boring. He's boring because he's so one note and he's always going to be the good guy and stuff like that. And while I think that that's just kind of plain old untrue, because I think being pure goodness can inspire a ton of, like, really good stories. Being purely any one thing can inspire a ton of good stories about questions about that thing. Right? Yeah. But nevertheless, stories like this can appeal to those people who would otherwise go, oh, he's just a good guy. Well, this puts him in a place where he's not, for once. And you get to ask questions about what does that actually mean for him? Yeah. Well, what's interesting is that that's also kind of what the story is about, is like it's kind of a rejection of modern comics. Yeah. Where, like, like the character when Superman shows up for the first time back again, and then the next issue he's like stopping a bunch of people from going crazy.
Yeah,
like Americommando. You remember this?
So what a character,
Americommando. This is incredible.
Yeah.
Because I read the deluxe edition with all the notes in the back and everything. Americommando was described by Mark Waid to Alex Ross, who, other than this character and a couple others, had free reign to just kind of like create whatever look he wanted to for like the grandsons, like the progeny of the heroes, of what that would end up looking like.
Yeah.
But for this one specifically, Mark Waid described it as Captain America as if he was designed by Rob Liefeld, which is so funny.
Messed up feet.
Dude, so many pouches. It's like Homelander and Cable put together.
Yeah.
It's so good because like after reading that, I'm like, that is exactly what that is.
Yeah.
And like it's interesting reading all that behind the scenes stuff and seeing how much of this book is Alex Ross and Mark Waid's love for Golden Age and Silver Age comics.
Yes.
And them saying, kind of in a large way, rejecting what modern comics had become in the 90s, which was very edgy and very much like characters like Magog and like Spawn, and characters that are very like edgy and anti-hero and they kill and all this different stuff. Yeah. And this is a story about like, why do people want that? Why do we like that? Whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow?
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Must there be a Superman is kind of the question, which was an old comic that then that question got brought back for this and even gets called out at one point in a newspaper in the book itself.
Yeah.
The idea of like, is him being there helpful or is he impeding people from growing in their own?
Right.
And I think you kind of just have to decide that, because you could say either way is true, because he leaves for 10 years, things get way worse.
Yeah.
So is that because over all this time he was stopping people from developing their frontal cortex by helping them out and being a good guy? Right. Or is it because he wasn't around to keep doing his job? I don't know.
Makes you wonder.
So
it's supposed to make you wonder.
I got a lot of notes here.
Okay.
I got a lot of stuff.
Sure. Rapid fire at me.
Let's see. I think the lettering is really, really good. I really want to specifically call out the lettering done by Todd Klein. I've got it somewhere. There's a point where he is like, Superman is talking just kind of at normal volume. Yeah. And then he decides like he's going to go into authoritative mode.
Yeah.
And the text stays the same, so it's like he's talking normal, but his tone changes, and you can understand that because the box around the text suddenly becomes thicker.
Yeah.
I can try to find this real quick.
Yeah. I love stuff like that. I mean, the way that this medium gets used in that way is
really clever.
So clever. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's when he steps up to speak at the UN for the first time.
Yes, this is what I was thinking of too. Yeah.
They go up there. Everyone's like, oh, he's making a statement. We listen. And good afternoon. Many of you may remember us. We have been away for a while. That was our mistake. Yeah. And it's like this very like, we're back, deal with it.
Yeah, it makes it like visually like imposing for you as the reader to put you in the scene that way.
It's a heavy contrast. Like it's a very subtle way to show a very a larger intensity in the way he's speaking compared to him talking to Diana or talking to Bruce. Yeah, which is a really cool subtle thing. Lettering is really, really good. And there's a lot of really good lettering in this whole book.
Totally.
All of the like Norman McKay, the preacher, is his thought boxes are all in
like a
cursive,
like a script,
kind of a script. Yeah. There's Americommando being ripped to shreds.
It's so nuts.
It's so good.
What a time. Oh, dude. Also, the way that, since you showed that, the way that the Flash is painted anytime I got giddy every time they showed the Flash in a panel. I don't even know why. I think it's the fact that he's always vibrating, and they found a way to paint him like as mirror images, or not.
There's always two of him because he's moving back and forth constantly.
It's so cool.
There's a lot of background lore in this that doesn't get explored just because there's not time for it.
Yeah.
So for example, the Green Lantern in this is not Hal. It kind of looks like Hal. It's Alan Scott.
Yeah.
It's the original Green Lantern, who interestingly must not have been canonically gay at this point. because he has children in this.
Oh, did he? I forget that.
Yeah. So I don't know when that became a thing in the comics.
Right.
But fun little, it's like when you see the Twin Towers in an old movie and you're like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah. Well, his abilities are awesome in this too. He's got his armor on the whole time, and I think that the Watchtower at this stage and things is a construct of one of his thing, which is just rad.
It's cool.
The way they use all their abilities, like even people that they don't use very much throughout the comic, you get like a couple pages of Martian Manhunter doing his telepathy thing, and that's a key part of unraveling this mystery of who Lex Luthor's
side guy is.
We don't know if
that's Billy.
Yeah, but you find out that it's Captain Marvel back when he was Captain Marvel and not just Shazam.
Yeah,
which is fun. So you get Captain Marvel then at that point, and he's awesome in this.
Well, the Flash is Wally as well.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah. So there's never any actual indication of it specifically, except for like there's one shot where he's not hanging out with the full Justice League. He's hanging out with the grown-up Titans.
Yeah.
So that's the only indication that you ever get that this is Wally. But then they do say after the fact that is who it is.
I love that.
So the idea behind him and the why he looks that way is because with Superman gone, he just went full out and started going, as fast as literally possible to the point where he no longer knows how to stabilize his particles. So he has to be in constant motion. So he's just this red blur, and he's kind of designed to look like traditional drawings of Mercury, which is kind of cool. I'm sure you love that.
I do love that a lot. I noticed that same thing. And I think they say at one point that he's like stopping crimes in a split second, even minor ones. So even he has kind of turned his city into like an authoritarian kind of a utopia sort of place where it's like if you the second you do the tiniest little wrongdoing, the Flash is on you because he sees everything because of the speed he's moving at. It's crazy stuff, and I love it.
I love that Gotham is very clearly drawn as the animated series Gotham, the very Art Deco. That is literally a background painting from the animated series.
Oh yeah, it is.
And like the bat suits are designed off of classic Batmobiles,
which I didn't think if I had to guess what the style that Alex Ross was gonna paint this in, I would never have guessed that he was gonna have. I was thinking it was gonna be like old timey, so like specifically old timey, 60s Gotham or whatever it is. It's like very much that Art Deco thing. But then he has like bat mechs, and even to me that's like, man, what a fun shakeup of my expectations of the art. You just do, he takes it in a whole other direction. I cannot.
He's really incredible in this, Ross. And the kind of like gravitas that his painting gives in this lends it a whole other level of like, it has this very epic, sweeping, biblical kind of like feeling. The whole story does, and the art is a huge component of that.
Totally.
Like the World's Finest comics by Mark Waid have been really, really good. And he, with art by Dan Mora, who is in traditional comics kind of like the greatest right now, they kind of did a whole thing that went back to the Kingdom Come universe that gave it like a whole origin story to Magog, which is, it was really interesting and didn't undermine it, I don't think. But it's like a whole different kind of feeling looking at that universe and this version of Batman and Superman and stuff as younger versions of themselves, but drawn in like a very classic traditional comic style. It's a very different thing. But it's also a different tone of story.
Totally.
So it makes sense.
Our last episode was about like some of the when we were talking about Insider Comics, and we were talking about some bleak stuff. For anybody who hasn't seen those, I hope you go back and watch /listen. We were talking about some bleak stuff, and I went, oh man, I can't wait to talk about Superman, who is much more lighthearted.
The cunning warrior attacks neither body nor mind.
Tell me how!
The heart, Osborn. First, we attack his heart.
And fun, and then I started with Kingdom Come. I set my expectations too light. I love it too. It was so good.
But this book takes, in the same way that All-Star Superman does, it takes Silver Age elements and Golden Age elements and treats them with a kind of reverence that makes them work in a different kind of way. That it's like you get kind of these old-fashioned ideas and these weird, goofy characters in the background, like the I can't remember his name now, but like just weird characters and stuff like that. But they're treated as anybody else in this world, and it makes it work really well.
Yeah.
And it kind of like works within that kind of meta narrative again. Mm-hmm. It's just so good. It's very good, and I love it. And that's what I have to say about that. Michael, what parts of this do you feel like, because I know I can speak to what I think this is how this inspires the movie.
Yeah.
But what do you think?
So here's
would this have been a book that you would have thought of?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
If I was not, I guess I'm saying that from the thought process of like, if I was a director that was starting up this shared DC Comics universe to adapt into movies.
Yeah.
If I read this book, I'm like, okay, this is exactly the thing that I want to work up to in my new film franchise that I'm giving birth to, because I'm James Gunn in this scenario. Picture me with my white hair. And all that. I want to work up to this, if that's me. So when I hear, it's heavily inspired by this Kingdom Come storyline, I go, which element that you gotta
Did he
really
say that specifically? I don't know that he has said that it's specifically inspired by Kingdom Come.
I'm pretty sure he tweeted that at some point.
Okay.
If I'm wrong, tell me. But a lot of people, even if he hasn't been saying that, a lot of people have said that as like something connected to the new Superman movie. So I go, like what elements have been chosen? Because clearly this is a book that takes a ton of context to actually make sense. And it's heavily reliant on this big old time jump between the time when a lot of the heroes that are going to show up in this movie, a lot of those characters have retired and have aged and have gotten like decrepit, before this book even begins. And so I think it's such an interesting idea to, okay, let's take bits of this and adapt it now, rather than that's going to be our, in 4 years, that's our Avengers movie. Kingdom. They're not doing that, which I think this kind of a story would be rife for,
Sure.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a hard thing. It's like trying to do Secret Wars. There's so much continuity that you would have to have set up to make this story work as a direct adaptation.
Yeah.
To like having the context of a lot of these characters and a lot of the histories of these characters and stuff changes how you read this book hugely.
Yeah.
So the way that I think that this is going to kind of be adapting Kingdom Come is doing like a reverse, where in this, Superman is this veteran hero who comes back as the younger generation is getting worse and worse. I think what is happening based on the trailers and some descriptions about Superman trying to battle with, it was originally called Superman Legacy for one. And it's him wrestling with his Kryptonian heritage as well as his Earth heritage and figuring out how that mixes and everything like that. That's what we've been told is kind of the description of the movie. The way I think that comes into Kingdom Come is I think knowing that this is a Superman that has been around for about 3 years and that this is knowledge coming from the young adults novel that has been released that gives us a little bit of information about the universe. This is a Superman that's been around for 3 years, and typically in the comics, Superman arriving in the world is like the biggest moment in the DC universe. It's huge, and it kind of kickstarts a lot of other people to become superheroes. In this case, superheroes have been around for forever, for decades and decades and decades, which is also the case in the comics, but it's like on a smaller scale. And then Superman shows up and it's a big deal. So in this, his first day on the job is not like the huge big ticket event as it traditionally is portrayed, where in this way, he's just kind of the new guy on the block, where I think what's going to happen here is that it is this justice gang that is very corporate, that's being run by Max Lord. They all have the same uniforms and everything. It's a business operation.
Famous nice guy Max Lord.
In the comics, he's not typically a bad guy all the time.
Maxwell Lord, the financier?
Yeah. They made him a straight up villain in the Wonder Woman movie, but he kind of goes back and forth in the comics. And
he's just a rich guy. He's rocks on oil.
Basically.
For a Marvel
more or
league.
less. And he is basically running this corporate version of the Justice League, which doesn't exist yet. So what I think is happening here is that this is the very corporatized fake superhero. They're doing it as a job, whatever. And then Superman shows up and he's the beacon of hope and of action. And this is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And this is like, he's doing the same kind of thing that he's doing in Kingdom Come, but it is him as the newcomer being like, no, this isn't it.
Totally.
Like, this is the way that you should be doing this. That's what I think the main inspiration is here.
Yeah.
Not, you know, the apocalypse and Captain Marvel is going to blow up the world or that's going to get nuked or all this different stuff. Just the kind of the idea at the basis level.
Yeah.
I think is kind of where this story is starting and then going from there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree 100%. Yeah. I think it's going to... I like the idea of taking elements of the epic, and I would call this an epic book.
Yeah.
And going, okay, but what would this look like if this was actually where this character was rooted?
Yeah.
And we're going to see where he goes.
Yeah.
You know, I love that a ton. Yeah. And what a way to do an origin without doing an origin too. Because Gunn has said everybody knows the origin of Superman. We're not going to go over it is true. Yeah. We're not going to do it again. And I'm glad for that. I think that does, at the same time, I think that does make it super tough to be invested in the character if you don't see the humble beginnings. Because we love... I'll pick on Iron Man because he was the beginning of his universe.
Sure.
We love Iron Man because we saw him in the desert. You know what I mean? So if we aren't, you know, walking with Superman in Smallville, it's going to be hard work to keep us by his side throughout the entire narrative, you know?
Yeah, I think to a degree.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's that big of a hurdle necessarily. Like, it's like you look at, it's the 20-something anniversary of Batman Begins.
Yeah.
And they spend like the first like 40 minutes of that movie, 30, 40 minutes of that movie just setting up Bruce Wayne and where he got all this training. And because a lot of that movie is adapting kind of the year one story, but there's a narrative gap there that was never really filled previously of what was actually happening in this time when Bruce went away.
Yeah.
And that is in the same way that in Superman 78, they spend that huge amount of time setting up him growing up and Pa Kent's death and all this different stuff before he shows up as Superman, literally like almost halfway through the movie. It does a lot to humanize the character and help you get to know them. Yeah. And that's why those two movies are my favorite in their respective kind of worlds.
Totally. Yeah.
But I don't know that you need it all the time. And I feel like going over all of that again for James Gunn as a director and a writer probably wouldn't be interesting because it's like we've already done that. Like we've seen that and we're not going to do it better than Richard Donner
Man of
did.
Steel.
Oh. Yeah. Right.
I like Man of Steel for the record, but I'm not saying
I
that's
like
the best
Man
one,
of Steel more than I don't.
Yeah, same.
Are there huge issues with it? Yes.
Yeah. You like
the music is really good.
You just like always grumpy Perry White with his little earrings played by Lawrence Fishburne.
Do they have little earrings in that one?
Perry does.
Oh, okay.
I can never take my eyes off it when I watch any scene with Lawrence Fishburne in that movie.
love Lawrence Fishburne as Perry White, and I'm very excited for Wendell Pierce as Perry White. I think he's going to be really great.
I hope we get Jimmy Olsen as a CIA guy.
A CIA guy? Oh.
My favorite part
he does lots of weird adventures. I don't know. I was going to say, I hope I see him transformed into a lizard or something. That happens in the comics.
That too, yeah. No, I want him in the CIA, and he's tracking terrorists, and he gets got.
Yeah. Okay, very good. We're running a little long. Do you want to run through?
Yeah. Let's talk about All-Star Superman.
Okay, so
All-Star, great heavy hitter from Superman comics.
I feel like I have less to say about All-Star.
Really? Okay.
Just because from a narrative standpoint, it kind of doesn't have much to do seemingly with the story of the movie. Like James Gunn has talked about how like his dad's death was a big part of figuring out how to write this movie. Getting his dog was a big part of figuring out how to write this movie. And there's one issue in this series written by Grant Morrison, drawn by Frank Quietly, inked by Jamie Grant, colored by Jamie Grant, lettered by Phil Balsam and Travis Lanham.
Oh, what a team. My goodness.
Yeah. They did one issue of this that takes place kind of back in time, back on the farm with Pa Kent, with Krypto. I think I don't know that is going to have anything to do with anything. From what they've said, it's more like the tone and the feel of this book, and as well as All Seasons, is what this one right here. I got the first issue. That's kind of what they're taking from these ones primarily. Which is great. Like a lot of the reactions that I saw for the movie coming out of it is describing it as like a live action episode of the Superman the Animated Series. Which is kind of like this, or like Superman, All-Star Superman, that kind of thing. So All-Star Superman started in 2005, went through 2008. It was from the very short-lived All-Star imprint. There was only ever 2 books, All-Star Superman and All-Star Batman, completely unrelated, and holy cow, so different.
I still haven't read All-Star Batman.
All-Star Batman and Robin is interesting, somewhat controversial. Maybe the same Batman as The Dark Knight Returns, written by Frank Miller, drawn by Jim Lee.
Not All-Star. All-Star is not written by Frank Miller and drawn by Jim.
Yes.
It is?
Yes.
Sweet.
It is very interesting. The idea behind the All-Star line was basically like, we'll give top level creators just kind of an out of continuity book and let them do their vision or a more modern up to date thing. This is Grant Morrison's vision. So this is very poetic, mythic kind of take on the character. Basically, after being overexposed to solar radiation, Superman is dying. So it is, what is he doing in this time? Basically, the story is God is dying. And what does he do knowing that? And there's a lot of stuff about legacy in this one as well. So trying to figure out what that is interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a ton of really good... It has really good character moments in the way that it's like kind of theatric. Like, for example, when Superman first finds out that he's dying, he doesn't respond the way you or I would, in stunned silence or weeping or anything. He goes, "Oh yeah, I thought I felt kind of weird."
That seems strange.
Okay, Soups. Same thing when Lois finds out. They don't respond in the way that normal people typically would, and I think that that's a character moment in itself, because it's like, okay, Superman's dying. Superman has been dying in a million fights before. He'll find his way out of it. And
even after he's maybe gone, people are saying like, we're just, we're waiting until he comes back.
And I think that that's one of the themes that kind of permeates the whole thing. Is we can't take Superman as just a guy. When he, like, it's in one of the issues of this, he finally reveals to Lois that he and Clark Kent are the same person. And Lois won't believe it. I don't know if there's ever a point in this arc where she actually comes around to believing.
I think at the end,
maybe at the end, but like even that is like, okay, sure, you're Clark Kent. Lex Luthor can't believe it. This whole thing is, he's just too huge. He's too huge to die. He's too huge to be low level reporter Clark Kent. And in a lot of ways, he is still trying to be small. You know what I mean? He this has that famous page where he saves that girl that's about to jump off the roof. Which is a super famous, well-known page out of this book.
Insert that here, Marshall.
Yes, please have that, because it's such a good moment. Like it's there's nothing I can say that hasn't already been said about that moment in the comic, especially in the context where it's he's like, I forget what he's even doing in that issue. Something huge is happening, and he's trying to explain
something. Steps out quick.
Yeah, he's trying to like explain something to Lois that's big and important. There are, quote, more important, unquote, places that he could be in that moment, but he goes to save this girl who he hears having a crisis. And it's just this beautiful, like, he's the man behind the super kind of thing. And it's a really, really gorgeous thing. I think that is, and there's a ton of that also in For All Seasons, rather. That I don't know if we'll get into there.
I think we're out of time a little bit
with this, but it's things like that I think we'll share with this new movie that's coming out soon.
The tone of these things, the visuals of these things, the kind of like Silver Age feeling. I think it's going to be good. I have a lot of hope for it.
Me too.
I think it's going to be great.
Yeah.
I don't think we have time to do bingo right now. We might have to do a quick bingo later.
We can do a bingo.
I also haven't had time to. I haven't thought about all my. I have one bingo.
Hey, that's fine. We can do a bingo during next week's episode where we're going to talk through more of our comic book news and what we've been reading and junk like that. If you want to,
sure, I can insert it in there or something.
Go back and yeah.
We'll figure it out. I don't know.
We'll figure it out.
Thanks for being here.
We love you so much.
We are doing, I don't know, we haven't said it in this one. We're doing a new thing. We're splitting up the news and what we're reading and stuff like that into a whole separate thing. So now there's going to be an episode coming out every single week. So you can look forward to that next week. And then the week after that, we'll be talking about Fantastic Four. Yep. Superman will have come out at that point. And we will be talking about the new movie on Cinema Lounge, which I can
get excited.
Link somewhere. So yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for spending your time with us. And we will see you in the next thing.
See you next time. Keep reading comics. We love you.
Good luck.